there's a million fish stories out there. It's always about the one that got away. Well, today we're going to bring you a fish story about the one that's been kept for over 50 years. Hey everybody, Muscle Car Campy here with an unbelievable car. 340 Cuda, 1970, and it's an original owner car. In 1970, the Barracuda shed all its original A-body roots. It went from being kind of a nice A-body car to a really great E-body. All the pedestrian roots of the A-body car were gone. A lot of this is B-body under the skin, which is a much better riding platform, a much better handling platform, and best of all, it could accommodate engines up to the 426 Hemi with ease. Now this car was bought new by a man named Ray Junio from beautiful Brooklyn, New York, Brooklyn, USA, and there's an unusual story behind it. He bought it from a PX in Vietnam. Now the car, as you can see, has some unusual tricks to it. He added these red stripes later on. Did not come with red stripes from the factory. You couldn't get them on a black car. But Ray's managed to hold on to this car for 50 years now. You can't say the same for a lot of things in his life then, but this car is still here.
Well, I ordered the car probably the end of May in 1969 while I was in Vietnam. The PX had different automobile manufacturers at tables. Obviously there were no cars there, just pictures. And I was looking to buy a new car when I got home. And once I saw the Barracuda, I knew that was the one that it had to be. Car was ordered. They told me that they wouldn't build the car until after I got home. And so I left Vietnam on December 15th, I left Vietnam December 15th, 1969. The car was delivered to my local dealership, Flatlands, Plymouth in Brooklyn, New York, on January 30th, 1970. And that's when I picked the car up.
Ray, we've talked enough about this car. You handed me the keys. It's time to go cruising in the Cuda.
Let's go.
Boy, it just starts and sounds like a brand new Barracuda. You know, I had one of these back in the 70s. I had a 71 Barracuda convertible. This is like old home week for me. Same instrument cluster for the most part. My slapstick shifter had a T-handle, not a round knob. But what do you say we go out and make some noise?
Let's go for it.
Boy. My Barracuda had the same twin scoop hood as this, so it really is all very familiar to me.
I actually prefer the twin scoop over the air grabber.
I agree. I was never, not that I didn't like the Shaker, but I think this is just sculpted better, it looks better. Let's try not to run over any pedestrians today, but. Okay, I've gone 100 feet and I already know why you kept the car all these years. This is great. A lot of credit. Ray, car is tuned perfectly. It runs like a brand new car. You know, it just like I said, reminds me so much of mine. It rides the same way. Mine was convertible, so this has far fewer rattles.
But it has its rattles.
Every E-body I've ever driven has had rattles, and they're the same rattles in every car. There's no real difference. Like I said, you just get a couple more in a convertible. But same skinny steering wheel, although you have the wood pattern on yours, mine was black. I understand when I drive this why people pay so much for them today as restored collector cars, even as just rusted out hulks. People pay a fortune for them. You know, there's just crazy. It is, but there's nothing that looks like this except for maybe a Challenger.
And I personally prefer the looks of the Barracuda over the Challenger.
As do I. As do I. Now you and I will argue, of course, because I think the 71 Barracuda and Cuda was better looking than the 70. But again, it's a personal thing. You know, it could just be because when I grew up, there was a 71 340 Cuda in my neighborhood, gunmetal gray color, and I just became completely in love with those 4 gills in the fenders. So maybe that's why I prefer the 71 to the 70. You never know. And
I don't mind the gills and the fenders. I just think the front end of the car is way too busy.
Yep. This is definitely vintage Mopar feel. That little bit of play in the steering wheel, very light, over assisted steering. Not a firm feel box, obviously, but boy, it sure does. It just goes where it's supposed to. I mean, these cars, unless you were buying an AAR Cuda, these cars weren't meant to win any road races or do any autocrossing. They're a very large car, but it just, there's nothing like it. I mean, I feel like the king of the world right now, just driving this Cuda. It's just fantastic.
I've always wondered how a big block would handle in comparison to this. What would the difference in the feel be?
You know, I imagine it had stiffer springs, probably different sway bars, so it would probably be tight. Probably on a road like this, you're fine, but the minute you really start pushing it, all the vintage road tests had them being, you know, real pushers.
Yeah.
You know, which is no surprise, especially given the tires of the day and everything else. Now, everybody wants to know, and I know the answer to this question, but why didn't you get a Hemi, Ray? Everybody says that, you know, they were available. Everybody says, oh, I wish I could go back in time. Now, why don't you tell us,
well,
you know?
First of all, I have a reputation for being cheap. A Hemi was about a $700 option. I was also considering a convertible. Convertible was going to be about another $500. So for about $1,200 more, this could have been a Hemi Cuda convertible.
But you're talking now 25% more money
of the car, yeah,
for the car. So
well, my problem is that I also had a girlfriend at the time, and I took the money that I had saved up and I split it between the car and an engagement ring. And that's basically why I did not get the Hemi or the convertible or the combination.
now, had you gotten the convertible Hemi, now we'd be talking a whole nother level of collectability here.
Oh sure, first of all, it'd be $1 million car.
And you probably wouldn't be letting a knucklehead like me driving it.
I don't know, because these cars were made to be driven. I mean, do I want to have a museum piece in the garage? I might as well just have a photograph at that point.
And again, this is a car that has survived the streets of Brooklyn, years of abuse. Not abuse, but, you know... Use. And, you know, when cars are out on the street, things happen to them. This we know. Sure.
The maintenance man at work's got one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You don't see it very often. Beautiful car.
Thank you very much. Why wouldn't he stop? Why isn't he kind of going around me?
You not get this all the time.
Yeah.
I go to get gas. People come up to the car while I'm pumping gas.
Drives nice though. That was up to about 65, 3/4 throttle, not really stomping on it. Feels good, runs nice and cool. I mean, just a great car. You know, and it's kind of funny to see a car like this, you know, 340 Cuda with a stock speedometer, no tack, but you didn't, this goes back to the frugal Ray, you didn't order the gauge, the rally gauge cluster.
I didn't order a rally gauge cluster, although it does have an aftermarket tack.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the factory tachometers back then were a little suspect anyway, so you really weren't missing much.
Right.
I think most people put an aftermarket tack in them anyway. But I will say, we're almost at that point, we're going to have to use that factory air conditioning. It's getting a little toasty in here. And that's one option most muscle car owners, especially in the north, didn't really go for. But, you know, you went for it, and, you know, nowadays, that's probably a happy that you did.
Oh yeah.
We all know it gets rather warm here in the summertime and in the springtime.
And in the fall, and in the winter.
What other options are on the car besides the air conditioning and the rear defroster?
Well, the other options that I ordered on the car was the light package, the automatic transmission, the 727 torque flight. The 340 engine was an option, air conditioning. The car originally was ordered with body side molding. When I had the car redone, the body side molding was removed. The day I picked the car up, of course I was real excited. I had my brand new car. And the first thing I did was I drove over to my girlfriend's house to show her the car. She comes out and we get in the car and I go to turn the car on and there's all kinds of smoke coming out of the dashboard. And so of course we shut it off right away. I called the dealer up, very, very angry. They came down with a flatbed, took the car away, and they had the car for about 3 weeks. And they had to do a lot of wiring under the dashboard that had caught fire.
Production of the Barracuda jumped up to over 50,000 in 1970, a huge increase from 1969. Of those, 6,032 were 340 Cudas. Not a whole lot of cars in the overall scheme of things, but a pretty decent number to begin with. I hope you enjoyed this segment of Muscle Car Campy, and I hope you'll hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. We've got a lot more cool cars coming up pretty soon. Stay tuned.